Meh, average. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. An average coffee consumed, so I'm ready for today's video. Today's the day, ladies and gents. It is the mecca of all things performance, health and physique related. The Shangri-La in all of our pursuits to become the best all-round athlete. It is, can we do conditioning? Can we basically build a cardio base, an aerobic base? Can we build the engine that we want without compromising muscle mass and strength and all of our flipping hard effort from the weights room? If the answer was just a resounding, unequivocal no, this would be a pretty turbo shit video. But luckily, I don't even have to lie when I say the answer is yes. As always, caveated with, if we execute things in the right way. How do we do that? How do we do our conditioning work? How do we execute our conditioning work? How do we build an engine in the way that we want so that we're fit, we're supple, we're lean, but still strong and muscular and powerful and athletic? Well, I believe I've devised a fairly creative system for this, breaking it down into 3 different sections, and that, as you might flip and expect, because that is my strategy, is exactly what I'm about to explain to you now. So without further ado, let's just jump straight in. The conditioning sessions that I'm doing at the moment that I believe do elicit this result embodies a couple of key principles. The first one being that intensity tends to ramp down through the course of the session and volume tends to ramp up. That would suggest that we start the session with the most intense part of the workout in the beginning. I'm a big fan of weighted cardio or heavy cardio generally. I think it's an amazing middle ground between building the engine that we want, working on some lactic tolerance, but still eliciting a little bit of an anabolic response, still telling your body and giving your body the signal that it needs to maintain its muscle mass. So a legs, push, pull, tricep at the beginning of the conditioning session is a really nice little circuit. It's gonna be gassy because effectively there's no rest. But the other day when I did this session, which you are gonna see now, were a front foot elevated or deficit step back lunge. 8 each side, guys. Again, the whole purpose of the deficit is just it creates a little bit more of an acute angle at the ankle, the knee and the hip. More total work done because you're working all 3 of those joints at a greater range of motion, meaning the muscles are stretched more at the end range, you're going to activate more to then take you to extension. So 8 each side. And then, if possible, without even putting the barbell back, just step back into a little bit of free space and do some behind the neck push press. 10 to 12 reps on this. Nice and explosive because it is a push press, not a strict press, which means you are allowed to use your legs and hips to basically generate all the force that you need, requiring some speed, requiring some explosiveness, which makes it even more metabolic as well. And just make sure that you are competent in this exercise appropriately, that as you bring the bar down, it lands in the same position on your traps every single time. The last thing you want it to do is to go so far back that it tears your rotator cuff or goes a little bit further forward and you end up wearing the barbell like a hat, which will be hilarious for about 5 seconds before you then wake up in hospital with a concussion. From there, we then get the bar out of the way, and then on the same station, again, you don't want this too far away. The fact that this whole video is about conditioning, we need to elicit that metabolic effect, which means we need to keep the rest periods as short or at some points non-existent as possible. So get the barbell out of the way, jump up to the pull-up bar. We've done some lower body work, we've done some push work. Now, what I like to do is to do some L hang pull-ups, which is basically pull work and core work in one exercise. So up to a pull-up bar, lift the legs up, nice dynamic work for your back and isometric work for your core. Around about 10 controlled reps all the way up and then all the way down. It will put a little bit more stretch on your back compared to a normal pull-up, basically because everything down that back chain, all those fascial slings on the back of the body are going to be stretched a little bit more, so it will feel a little bit different. But 10 controlled reps, drop down from the bar, cheeky little power clean of the barbell, re-rack it, and then back to the lunges. So guys, we're going to do about 3 to 4 rounds of this. Again, these are the exercises that I chose, but overall doing a lower body movement, a push movement, and then a pull movement sequentially, so with as little break as possible, sub-maximum in terms of weight, but effectively no break, is an amazing way to get a little bit of an anabolic response because it is metabolic bodybuilding to a point. We are lifting weights, but it is going to be very gassy. You're also sending your body signals. You're also challenging your respiratory system and your cardiovascular system. We are working on that metabolic conditioning. We're working on that baseline level of fitness. If you do need a little bit of a longer break, I do get it, but if you're at the stage where you are needing more than about 20 seconds to change from one station to the next, the chances are you're going a little bit too heavy. So if most of your training now is strength work and functional bodybuilding, and you're not used to breaks that are that low, even if you follow some of my other stuff and you do alternating strength EMOMs or some hypertrophy clusters as an example, both things I'm a big fan of, and both methodologies require very short rests. This is next level because this isn't really about the amount of weight that you're lifting. So for weight selection for the heavy cardio, this first part of the session, you want to be lifting as heavy as possible, assuming that you only need about 10 seconds between each station. If you need more than that, you need to go lighter. Even if it doesn't feel that challenging in terms of the weight that you're lifting, the purpose isn't really to lift as heavy as possible. The purpose is to be able to maintain a level of cadence where you're able to just go through the stations. And as with anything, there's always an adaptation phase. It might take you a little bit of time to get used to working out this way. So that's the first of 3 sections of the session done. This is the heavy cardio. This is the most intense but least voluminous part of the session. And as I said at the beginning, now what we do is we start to ramp down intensity and ramp up volume. Moving on to section 2 then, still weighted to a point, we're going to move into something called a CCC, or compound carry condition. And this is basically a 4-stage EMOM that I am a massive fan of at the moment. And I dabble with these and probably have done for about the last 18 months, but it's such an amazing way to implement some really cool kind of primal flipping functional medleys and chisel away at a badass engine at the same time. So let's break that down. It's 4 stages. There are 3 different exercises in this EMOM, EMOM being every minute on the minute, if you're not familiar with what that means. So if there is a part of the workout that takes you 35 seconds, you've then got only 25 seconds to rest before you then start the next phase. So 3 different exercises, and then the 4th minute is a rest. So compound carry conditioning, let's break that into stages. Compound is basically a multi-joint movement that is effectively fairly static in your body's position. A squat, a deadlift, a bench press, a pull-up, they are all compound exercises. We're actually going to go for a bench press, but we're going to make it a little bit spicy, and we're going to do feet up. It pushes the lower back and therefore the rest of the torso in a slightly different position, and just requires a little bit more kind of lateral stability on the bench, as opposed to having your feet down and a wider foundation. So 12 reps on the bench press here with the feet up. Again, a little bit of kind of rotational stability required, but pick an appropriate amount of weight so that you're able to do probably about 16 reps in this position if you could. So say those 12 reps took me 22 seconds. I've then got 38 seconds to move from this area to a different part of the gym to do the carry, which is the second part. Compound done, moving into the carry, which is farmers walks. So I'm training at One London Functional Fitness Gym in Imperial Wharf, which luckily has basically every piece of equipment in the world, including these funky little farmers walk handles. So 40 kilos in each hand. And I do 2 lengths of a 22 meter track. So it's a long old track, so you're looking at anywhere between 40 and 45 meters. That takes me just over 30 seconds. The compound in the form of the feet up bench is done. The carries in the form of farmers walks carries is done. Picking up a little bit of fatigue, starting to get a little bit gassed now. Now move on to the 3rd section on minute 3, which is conditioning, and that for me is 20 calories on the ski erg. So obviously I'm already a little bit fatigued as I'm moving into this. 20 calories isn't realistically something I'm gonna do in 25-30 seconds. It's gonna take me closer to about 50. So a nice spicy pace here, and I always make sure that once I'm at 15 calories, I pick up the pace a little bit and sprint the last 5, allowing myself to pick up a tiny little bit more fatigue. And the reason for that is I know that on minute 4, I'm gonna be able to rest. So say that takes me 50 seconds, I've now got 1 minute 10 to rest fully before I then go back into the bench press. Hydrate, move around, get some air in your lungs during this minute and 10, back into the other part of the gym, back in for bench again. And during that 4-minute phase of effectively each round, you start off bench fairly fresh because you've been rested. You then move into the carries under a little bit of fatigue, and grip is starting to go, and then farmers walk to basically a full body movement, so everything starts to tire. And then moving into the ski erg, you're already a little bit ball bagged by the time you start. And especially if you sprint the last 5 calories of the 20, you're deliberately and assertively putting yourself in the bin a little bit to make sure you flipping earn that rest at the end. So say if we did this for 5 total rounds, that middle section of the session, the compound carry condition EMOM, takes about 20 minutes. That is the longest part of the session, that central chunk. And the chunkiest portion, and now 2/3 of the session done and dusted. We continue to move forward now onto the 3rd and final section of the session, which, as we know from the direction that the intensity and the volume is going, is going to be less intense, but a little bit more voluminous, perhaps more voluminous, but definitely less intense. This is the only part of the session that basically has no rest period at all, and we instantly transition from one station to the next. A couple of different exercises here. We're going to do a purely cardio movement in the form of 15 calories on the bike erg. We're then going to move into 15 dumbbell push press, again fairly light, but the goal is to maintain a certain cadence and basically just keep us moving at the same pace throughout. not to blast 5 reps, puke our bloody lungs out and have to wait 20 minutes before we can crack on again. So 15 calories on the bike erg, 15 dumbbell push press. Third one is 15 burpees, and the fourth one, just to work on a little bit of back work, a little bit of core and stuff as well, is to do 5 front levers. If this is something you are unable to do, but you want to mimic this session as closely as possible, I advise you keep everything else pretty much the same, but replace the front levers with possibly something along the lines of something that's a little bit more high rep, but a little bit lower intensity, like 10 toes to bar. I'm going to do 4 rounds of this, and again the goal is just to maintain a certain aerobic base, to keep a pace that is challenging but sustainable, especially for the first 3 rounds, and then as you move into the 4th round, attempt to kick a little bit quicker on the bike erg. A, so we get a little bit more of a speed benefit, and B, so we kind of pre-fatigue ourselves for the next 3 movements. But even though we're carrying a little bit more fatigue, we've gone a little bit quicker on the bike erg, attempt to push at the same speed, and do not allow the speed and the cadence on the dumbbell push press or the burpees or the levers or whatever the core exercise of choice is to drop. There's not much more detail to go into on that 3rd and final section of the conditioning session, guys. And hopefully you'll see that excluding the warm-up and cool-down, you can get this entire session done probably within anywhere between 40 and 50 minutes. And this is an amazing way to get a metabolic conditioning effect to basically make sure that you stay lean, to build an incredible engine with both some steady state work and some interval sprints, so you're getting both sides of it, a little bit of lactic tolerance in there as well, whilst ensuring that we give a little bit of anabolic stimulus because we are lifting things and because of the speed work that's in there as well. When we put all of these different components and principles into a pot, stir it around a little bit, we are building an engine, we are staying lean, but we are making sure that we do that without compromising muscle mass or strength or power or speed or athleticism at all. It really is the Shangri-La of balancing these different components, these apparently completely opposite components of fitness, but they can be maintained and developed together, again, if you do it in the right way. If you did enjoy this video, please do aggressively smash that like button. It only takes you 2 seconds. It's incredibly beneficial for me and the growth of this young but hopefully fast growing channel. If you've got any comments or questions on anything at all, please do put it down in the comment section below. I literally have in my weekly diary a time where I go through all the comments from my YouTube videos to make sure that I respond to each and every one of you. If you have not yet done so, please do make sure you subscribe. A hell of a lot of awesome content on the way over the next couple of months. And as always, beautiful people, stay strong, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I'll see you all in the next video.